Good afternoon. I am Heather Barta. I am the coordinator of Province 5, and this is the Creation Care Network for September 9th, 2024.
So let's bring ourselves into this space by seeking the face of God and the help of God in our hearts and minds. Lord be with you.
And also
with you.
Let us pray. God, the source and destiny of all that is created. We thank you for gathering all creation into your heart by the energy of your spirit and bring it through death to resurrection glory. You weave the planet and all its creatures together in kinship. Your unifying love is revealed in the interdependence and relationships in the complex world you have made. So save us from the illusion that we are somehow separate and alone, and join us in communion with all in the universe. You call us to labor with you in tending the earth, open our hearts to the world, awaken our minds and wills to insight and care. And may we, with all your creation, honor and serve you in all things, for you live and reign with Christ, Redeemer of all, and with your Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Amen. Some announcements before we get started. First of all, there is a retreat this weekend where some of us will be. So the spiritual resilience in days of trouble. So if you are registered for that, we will see you there. If you are registered for that, you should have gotten at least 2 emails from me directly about that. So if you're not getting those emails, please send me a message in chat and I will get those over to you. Another reminder will be sent later today as our last minute thing. I also want to point out that there is a Creation Care Network page. I know it has to, it says Province 5 on it, but it's for this combined network of provinces 4 and 5. And so please visit that page. It has information on it. It has resources on it. It also has the link and the meeting information. So if you ever lose an email or you're ever confused about when we meet, you can use that page. What I was reminded about right before we started recording are some grant applications. So, hey, the UTO grant this year for 2025 is around water. If you did not know that, it is around water. So you might want to take a look at that and see if there's something that you want to do having to do with water. That's what I have. Jeanette, can you talk about Love God, Love God's World and that program coming up?
Okay, Love God, Love God's World. Heather and I are going to be facilitating Love God, Love God's World. We're going to do it kind of like on a speed dating type of format. It is Love God, Love God's World is on the similar to curriculum as Sacred Ground. What we're going to do, the reason that we're going to do this together as like on a speed dating format, is so that we can kind of train people who want to have access to it in their diocese or in their parish or so anything like that. So I know that several of you have signed up for that. Yay, that is a great thing. We are very excited about it. Everyone should have gotten a link and to the curriculum. Look at it. If you can go through each one and watch the videos, just kind of get comfortable with the information, that would be amazing, because it helps things go. It helps things go a little bit faster and we can all learn how to do the facilitation, because this is kind of like a little training thing. So that'll be great. And I'm really looking forward to this. We've been waiting a year for this. This will be really great that we get to work some more together and form a circle. This will be great. So anything else, Heather? Do I need you? Okay. Okay.
No, thanks. Jerry, you had an announcement you wanted to say?
Not that I know of. This the Center for Deacon Faith has its usual monthly webinar. We will be talking about Leopold. This time, third week in of the month, the third Thursday of the month at 7:30. Keep an eye on, I have sent that out in the newsletter without a registration because they haven't built the registration yet, which is why I'm hesitating about making much of an announcement, because I can't point you to a link. You can always track the deepgreenfaith.org site. That link should be up there.
Yep, I put it in the chat.
But outside of that, I can't say a whole lot more other than it's Rand Nesbitt, works with Iona Institute, and it will be talking about Leopold.
Oh, I thought, and you're going to talk about you're coming to Ann Arbor, something.
Oh, that's true. So Ann Arbor, detail for that. The first weekend in October, the 4th and the 5th and the 6th. Then let's see what I have. Let's see, Christian Hope and Creation Care. At St. Aidan's. They are hosting that, but I think it is diocesan-wide for them. So I'm kind of the program, although we're expanding that, of course, to do several pieces over the course of Friday night, Saturday, and including Sunday morning worship, and where we will be doing a very creation inclusive Eucharist, and I'll be preaching that service. So anyways, I have not seen a link for registration for that. I think they're kind of, I don't know what they're doing about that. I haven't seen a link for registration for that. So you could quiz that diocese or that at St. Aidan's and see what they have posted, because truthfully, I haven't seen it. It hasn't been sent to me. So there is that. So if that's your neck of the woods, yeah, you should check into that and come join us. We'll be in conversation all weekend long. So there's that. And now Heather has left the room. So other announcements, since we're in announcement mode, from anyone? Is anyone here, is this the first time you've shown up to our gathering? There we are, Rosalind. I was thinking that might be the true case of the matter. Would you be okay if you introduce yourselves to the rest of it? We would turn the favor to you, except for we often decide not to do that because it takes so long, but we are wanting to hear from you in particular, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I'm Rosalind Hughes. I am the interim canon for mission in the Diocese of Ohio, which is why I am coming newly to this group, because I've just been in that role for a few months, and calling together our first Diocese of Ohio Creation Care and Environmental Justice Zoom meeting on this Wednesday. So your prayers for us are invited.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome. And hope
you.
to be seeing you on a regular basis. The rest of you could introduce yourselves in the chat, if you like, just where you're from and any connections you have to usins in this work would be helpful. But we're not going to go around doing that. So with that, I think we can turn Carol to you.
Okay.
Carol Devine, who is our program of the day. She is the director of Blessed Tomorrow. And I'm thinking, Carol, you're going to introduce all of that work.
Yes.
And so I guess with that, looking for any other hands up before we do that. Seeing none, Carol, take it away.
Thank you, Jerry. And it's great to be with all of you this beautiful afternoon. I am Reverend Carol Devine. I am an ordained minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. But I never intended to do any formalized ministry other than as an active member of my own congregation. I was a teacher. I taught at the University of Kentucky adjunct. I was getting ready to start my doctoral work in education and had a lovely life. And when I was called to ministry and came, I say, kicking and screaming, probably some of you know that story in your own hearts. because I was very confused as to why. But when I got to seminary, I realized the why in a class called The Body of God. So I have always identified as a tree hugger, as an environmentalist. That has always been a passion of mine. But it was growing up, never part of my faith. I've been vegetarian since I was a very young adult, and but didn't see that as an act of my faith, because never in my church had I heard a sermon, had I done a Bible study about creation care. In fact, even in communion or baptism, the connections were not made for me. So they were very separate until seminary. And I realized then that my call to ministry was about helping others connect their faith, our faith, to creation care, to climate justice, and to the climate crisis and all that is, environmental work, whatever words you want to use, as there's many of them. And so I was a pastor for 14 years in a congregation here in Kentucky. I'm located in Kentucky, about probably not even an hour and a half from you, Jerry, but down the road about an hour and 15 minutes or so, and probably fairly near George. And I love my state. But I served for 14 years as a pastor. And during that time, I started the creation care ministry for my denomination. It's called Green Chalice, for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And then really felt called by God to give more time and energy to this as the climate crisis has worsened. So I left the pastorate in order to devote myself more fully to this work. And I have been the director of Blessed Tomorrow for 2.5 years, going on 3 years, actually, almost 3 years. And have been delighted to do this work in a multi-faith setting. And so the reason that I'm here today is to support all of you in your creation care leadership and your climate justice leadership. My job, I get paid to resource, support you all. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about our organization. And while I invite questions as I go, just know that I won't be able to probably see. I'm going to share a few slides. I won't be able to see you if you're waving. So you can just either unmute or you can wait till I'm done, and then we can have a little more conversation about it in that way. So I am going to share my slides. And
we'll also, if you put questions in chat, Jeanette can track that. If you raise your hand using the raise hand tool, I might be able to spot that. So we can help you out there a little bit, Carol.
Okay, that's fantastic. And so I want to make sure that I share in a way that I have one little short video. And so share sound. Hopefully this works. Zoom, since it switched its format, I sometimes am confused as to where everything is, but we're going to give it a try. So I'm the director of Blessed Tomorrow, which is the faith program of EcoAmerica. EcoAmerica is not a faith organization all around, but has 3 programs. One works with the health sector. It's called the Climate for Health. They work with anybody who is in public health, any pediatricians, doctors, American Psychological Association, really supporting health professionals in their climate work. Then we have a program that is for communities. It's called Path to Positive Communities. And then we have the faith program, which is called Blessed Tomorrow. And the 4th arm of EcoAmerica is research. And so we have a whole staff who are dedicated to doing research with our partners and then separate to inform our partners. The Episcopal Church has been working with EcoAmerica since 2015. And actually, Stephanie Johnson has probably been working with EcoAmerica even longer than that. She was one of the core leaders who helped imagine what Blessed Tomorrow is now and what it should be, and how to move forward in that way. So Blessed Tomorrow is works with all faith organizations, all denominations, including, of course, the Episcopal Church, in providing resources and trainings and how to talk about climate, and also just strategic guidance, working with our partners of like, how can we do this better, and imagining other ways for us to all partner. And so I'm blessed to do this. So this is what Blessed Tomorrow looks like. These are our partners, and we have incredible leaders. Melanie has been part of our executive committee since 2017. And both Bishop Curry and before him, Bishop Jeffords Scory have been a part of guiding, participating in Blessed Tomorrow. So I want to this is just a 2-minute video, but EcoAmerica put this together can you all hear it?
All of God's creation is a part of the very family of God, the entire created world and universe. We see the beauty and the majesty that God has created. We have been charged with being caretakers of God's creation, and in so doing to be co-workers with God in the saving work of restoration and reconciliation. If you don't believe me, read Genesis 1. The work we do for the healing of creation is simply joining in God's saving work. This is not secular do-goodism. This is the Jesus movement. As followers of Jesus, we care for God's world because God cares for God's world. And this means that we care about climate change. The Episcopal Church is growing in our dedication to this urgent movement by helping to turn love into action, and we can do it. Already, we have a unique place in the worldwide climate movement, with communities of faith in 17 countries throughout the United States, Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. Since the 1970s, the Episcopal Church has been a champion in protecting the environment that we all know and love. We already pray and advocate for climate solutions and for the most vulnerable among us who will bear the biggest share of the hardships of climate change. We pray and we hope for our children and for their future. People may wonder, why do we care? Why would a church be present? We answer, how could our church do nothing? When Jesus is moving in the healing and redeeming of human society, we must be there too, for we follow him. My prayer is that we in the Episcopal Church will work to solve climate change in our homes, in our churches, in our communities. Today, we are continuing our work by partnering with EcoAmerica's Blessed Tomorrow program, a program which unites people of faith to act on climate change by giving us the tools, the resources, and the messaging we need to serve as stewards of God's creation. Even in the midst of difficulties and setbacks, God's work goes on. Our work must go forward too. This is God's world. We are God's children, and he's got the whole world in his hands. May God bless our hands as we strive to be faithful in this holy and important work.
So of our many things that we do at Blessed Tomorrow, our Starship program is a climate ambassador training and program. There are 45 Episcopalians who have become climate ambassadors, and we have annually one live training of this. It's a little less than 4 hours, about three and a half hour training that we do live, and that'll be on November the 14th this year, Saturday. And then there is an free on-demand training that is available at any time, and you can go as fast or as slow as you want. And there is one specifically for Episcopalians. So it is framed at the beginning and at the end, and actually a couple of places in the middle, by some Episcopalian leaders that just kind of ground the training within the Episcopal faith. In addition, there's one specifically for clergy. It is not specifically Episcopalian. It's just for all clergy. That includes a little more of the eco-theology, a little more of how to pastor in a time of climate crisis, and how to advocate and lead on advocacy and those kinds of things for the clergy. And then lastly, there's one that is in Spanish. So this climate ambassador training is grounded in faith, and it walks folks through climate basics, so they get the climate science, the impacts that are going on, as well as the solutions. It connects with justice and why we care about this issue as people of faith, how to talk about climate and faith, and then provides resources and ongoing support for those who want to continue to be connected through the Climate Ambassador Program. It is absolutely free. It is available to all of your networks, your congregations, as well as just folks in the community. We know that the more we know about climate and faith, and the more that we have the right words. So many people that I meet who are people of faith don't feel like they have the knowledge or the words to talk about it. And all of you who are familiar with Catherine Hayhoe know that the number one thing she calls us to do is to talk about it, and talk about it from our faith. So the Climate Ambassador Program is a community. It has ongoing support for those who want to be involved in it. And our climate ambassadors impress the heck out of me every day. In fact, the picture before that I just showed of Sarah Flint, she lives in Florida and has created an incredible program. She said that that the Climate Ambassador Program has really equipped her to step outside of her comfort zone. And she's really been leading in her community to provide for the unhoused and most vulnerable in the midst of great heat in Florida. And so she's just wonderful, and wanted you to know about her. This is just in 2023, and actually we will surpass this in 2024. We, in 2023, trained over 1,200 folks through this training program. We have a total at the end of 2023 of over 2,000 ambassadors. Now it's well over 3,000. And we encourage them to be visible and to let others know the actions that they take so that it can inspire others. Because when we hear of good ideas, or we hear of just your regular person of faith, other Christian who's doing something, then we are inspired to take similar actions. And so we really encourage them to take the actions. You can see they pledged to take 885. The reported actions were 608. And we asked them how many people were at their whatever, that, how many folks did they reach through their actions? Over 500,000 folks were reached through this these climate ambassadors, which is just amazing. We know that all the things we care about as people of faith, as Christians, are being impacted by the changing climate. And the ambassador program helps ambassadors talk about the intersection of climate and all of these things that you see on this screen. I'm obviously not going to talk about these, and you all don't need it. You all are the experts as well, but I think it's really important that you know that there are resources and trainings for your people. Something that is really close to my own heart as a pastor is the mental health challenges that we are seeing, particularly in children and youth. And because of that, I think it is really important for those of us who are faith leaders, whether it be lay or clergy, that we not only are talking about this, that we are looking at our children and youth and letting them know that they are not crazy, but that they are feeling depression, anxiety, stress for a reason, because they are paying attention, and that we know that and see that, and we want to support them. I created, alongside some other clergy, a guide for faith leaders of just like, how do we go about this? Because we know there's a great shortage of mental health professionals, particularly for children and youth. And so clergy and faith leaders, lay leaders, are being called upon by families, by youth groups, by children in our churches as the first line of defense. And so we, clergy, while we did get some training for pastoral care, we were not trained on this level, and yet we're the first stop for so many families. And so it's really important that we all educate ourselves and others in our community about the impacts of climate on mental health, and that there are things that we can do. The other thing I just want to lift up, because the Episcopal Church is so justice-minded, and I so appreciate all that the Episcopal Church does and speaks out and stands up for justice, that this is something that is central to the work that we do at Blessed Tomorrow, and that we know that you all know this, but I think it's really important that we be saying over and over and over again that the most vulnerable among us are the first to be impacted by climate change, the worst to be impacted by climate change, and the most vulnerable are the future generations who are not yet born, who have had nothing to do with the problems that we find ourselves in. And so it is for all of these folks that we do this work. It is, we know through research that it is really important that we do provide an image for folks, a picture, or together create an image, a picture, a hope for a better world, and imagine together what it will be like when we solve climate change, when we have thriving nature, when the air and the water and the soil are healthy, and that people can prosper, be stable, that we have economic justice and stability. So focusing on what will it be like and all of the positive impacts that come from us doing this work. We, of course, can start with our own homes and families. When we do research, we know that folks are most comfortable talking about climate change, talking about climate and faith within their own families and their own close networks. So we can encourage folks to start there. And so what are the things that we can do, and how can we talk about this together are the things listed here on this page. But where we can really make a great impact, of course, is within our congregations. Integrating creation care into worship. I don't think we would go into any church in the US or beyond where if you were to ask someone, are we called as Christians to feed the hungry? Nobody would say no, right? So this feeding of the hungry as a part of how we see ourselves as Christians, a part of how we pray, a part of how we do worship, and a part of how we even go beyond the walls of our churches. And so creation care is not a new or separate program, but needs to be integrated into our worship and all that we do as churches. So we pray for and preach on and teach on, and we are visible in the work that we do because it isn't something extra, but is a part of how we live out our faith and who we are. And the thing that I have bolded at the bottom is to go beyond our congregational walls, because we know that we are all called to do that. But also, that is one of the beautiful things about working on climate together, is that it is a place that we may worship differently than the church down the street or the synagogue or the mosque. We may believe different things, but we can come together on this without problem and work together for our community and for the betterment of a future. Also, it's when we do things together, we just make such a greater impact. I loved the conversation at the beginning of this, of talking about the repair of the earth. I can't remember what it was that the gentleman said, but about plants for animals, and thinking about how we do that. In my own home, I am turning my lawn. I'm committing 50% of my lawn to pollinator species, to trees, to for the bees and the butterflies and the birds, etc. And so I'm trying to do these things in my home, but we know from research that actually the majority of the land in the United States is privately owned. So either homes or congregations or our higher education or colleges, etc. So if we were all to commit in our homes and in our churches 50% of the lawn back to biodiversity, imagine the repair that we might can do together. And there's just, I had a church member here in Kentucky who said to me, you can't feel bad when you are digging in the dirt. So when we as churches are digging in the dirt together, it restores our souls. It brings us together. It brings energy and vitality and just beauty, right? And so this is a real positive thing that we can all do together. Money and faith. Back when I was young, that my church leadership would always say, if you want to see what somebody believes is important, you look at their checkbooks. Now, people don't have much checkbooks happening. However, if we were to look at our bank statements or how we spend and how we invest our money, that shows whether or not we are actually living out our faith. So through just kind of thoughtful and intentional spending, by avoiding banking with the names that are on there, both with our credit cards as well as with our actual banking. And then, of course, eco-investing. So looking for green opportunities. It's easier now than ever. And then, of course, on congregational and denominational levels, the divestment that the Episcopal Church leads on, for which I'm so grateful. This is also the getting beyond our walls and connecting with other churches, with other organizations, both faith-based and secular, to do this work together. And that for the first time, all of you know that for the first time, we have the ability to get money back from the government in order to do some of this work, whether it be solar or other green things in our buildings. This is the first time we've ever been able to do this. And so working within others in our community as we go through these steps, through getting the direct pay or doing the biodiversity work or doing other incredible things. Actually, there's a congregation in Frankfort, Kentucky that several years ago, small congregation, but several years ago, they decided they wanted to have an annual event that they called, they still call green stock, kind of like Woodstock, only it's green. And so it is a zero waste festival that they have in the fall outside. They have local music, they have local food, they have education booths for children and families. And it's just, they bring in animals and just make it a really fun event for the community. And they try to partner with others in the community. That's one of the examples of just creativity and fun that can come by being more visible and present within our communities. I think it's really important that we remind each other and ourselves that our leadership actually does matter, that when we speak from our faith and we encourage those in our congregations and our faith community to speak from our faith, it really helps us to get this message going further. And so I want us to remember that when we speak from our faith, we're afforded a respect. We are afforded an opportunity to speak with others, whether it be our elected officials or whether it be community leaders or even our congregational leaders. And so it's really important that we take advantage of this speaking from our faith. Communicating from that place is really important, and how we communicate on climate is really important, because we have often, I have been guilty often of doing it incorrectly in a way that shuts others down. I started by saying, we know that over 70% of Americans are concerned about climate change, but the overwhelming majority of them are not sure how to talk about it and are not sure what to do about it. And so it is really important that as we talk about climate change from our faith perspective, that we do it in a way that invites people into the conversation with us, that inspires and empowers them rather than shutting them down. So less about all the statistics, and there are so very many. That doesn't mean that you don't include the science, but being overwhelmed by all of the science and statistics shuts people down rather than inviting them in. And so the research shows that we want to always, as we're talking about it, is start with the people that we're talking to, or the person that we're talking to, talking about what is it that matters to them? It might be, hey, when we were kids, I didn't know anybody who had asthma, and now you can't walk into a school in our community where you don't find children who have asthma. I'm really concerned. So starting with the things that matter to the folks that you're talking with, and things that they might experience and see as well. And that's where the make it real comes in. Like, what is it that we are seeing as we're talking with folks? What is it that we're noticing about the weather or natural disasters or the health impacts from climate change? Then focusing on the solutions, like there are solutions. We know how to get out of this, and churches and people of faith are leading on this. And when we work for climate change, there are so many benefits that we get personally by having clean air, clean water, etc., but also our churches, that when we do this work together, when we work on climate solutions, there's an energy, there's a vitality that comes into our congregations that wasn't there before. We want to inspire and empower, like I said, and then activate folks. Like, what is it that they can do? What are the steps, the first steps or the next steps that they can take? So we can make a difference, and churches are leading. We have to be, though, more visible so that all of us know ideas and be inspired what other folks are doing, and that we also are visible in order to inspire and encourage others in the same way. We'd want to ditch the doom and gloom, like I said, not ignoring the science, but not overwhelming each other in order to bring barriers down and invite people into this work. There's so much joy, as we all know on this call, from doing this work. My own faith has been deepened so greatly by realizing that this thing that has always been so important with me, this connection to the more than human world, once that has been completely connected to and a part of my faith has been deepened, and there's a joy and hope that wasn't there before. That is so beautiful. When we're thinking about advocacy, sometimes when we talk about being an advocate, it can shut people down. And so we like to talk at EcoAmerica at Blessed Tomorrow about broad spectrum advocacy, because some folks are really scared of the idea of like marching or going to their capital, but there are always things that we can do within our own circles, and then ever widening those circles. When I told you about the climate ambassador, Sarah Flint, she told me that she has never done anything like speak to a town council, and now she is. And so when we start with our families and friends and neighbors and places that we're a little more comfortable with, and then working on elevating our voice within our churches, which should also be a safe place, and then going beyond the church walls within our communities and our community leaders, and then to our policymakers and elected officials, so that us on this call today and faith leaders who are within our networks, we want to encourage them to go to the next step. Where are you in this? And go to the next step and encourage others in this work, because advocacy is so very important. Of course, sharing within workplace or other circles that we might have of where we are as people of faith on this issue is super important as well. And then I keep saying our community, but one of the things that I have seen over and over again, which is part of the problem that we're in as the faith community on climate, is that we are not being visible enough. We aren't talking about it enough. People don't go by our churches and think those folks inside that building are concerned about climate change and are doing something about it. So we have to get in the community. We have to be more visible. And that is where my work has really taken us. And the policymakers, I think we've talked about. There is obviously the opportunity now with social media to lift up our voices. You see a lot right now on voting. And so we encourage everybody to be very active in that way. On voting, I'm sure the Episcopal Church has voting resources. We also have voting resources that can support you all and your congregations and your communities. But there is probably not another action that's going to be more important in 2024 than not just Carol going to the polls, but Carol getting the folks who might not otherwise go to the polls as well. And so I really encourage you all to help folks see that voting their faith and voting their climate faith is really important, probably the most important decision that we will make, an action we will take. This is just a few pictures of the incredible work that congregations and faith leaders are doing in order to lead on climate. And I'm inspired every week when I get these reports and stories and photos shared with me of what churches are doing. And yet, every time I travel and someone learns of the work that I do, they always say to me, "Oh, I didn't realize that the faith community was involved in climate." We have got to be more visible. We have got to be louder. We have to be able to show folks that in the same way that they think, "I'm hungry and I don't have anything to eat, I'm going to go to that church and see if they will feed me," people need to also think, "Oh my gosh, there's a church. I know they're doing something about climate change. I know that they care about the more than human world." And so from that, we have started one year ago, last October, on October 4th, we launched One Home, One Future. Blessed Tomorrow was one of the partners, along with the Episcopal Church and so many denominations. I hope you'll go to onehomeonefuture.org and check it out. We have 46 partner denominations and organizations who are a part of this. And this is just a movement of the whole faith community. I had somebody tell me last week that One Home, One Future has the most robust resource hub of any organization. And the reason is because in our resource hub, we have Episcopal resources, we have Jewish resources, we have Presbyterian and Disciple, and on and on and on. So it is a collaborative effort, and it is a combining of our efforts so that folks can go there and use whatever is helpful. There is no downside to joining One Home, One Future. It's all free. All it is support. And the whole goal is for the faith community to be leading on this issue. There has never been a more important time for the faith community to step up and to step out and be visible, to let our lights shine. There has never been a more beautiful opportunity for us to do what God has called us to do. And so I'm going to stop sharing now so that I can see your beautiful faces. Uh-oh, did it go there? There we go. So I will pause. And I haven't been seeing chat, so I hope that somebody will let me know if there's things that I need to address. So I welcome questions. Please just unmute and speak up. Yes.
Toby from
Hey, Toby.
California, and I'm so grateful that you put in the divestment part, and that it seems like it's one of the pieces that people are reluctant to act on. I mean, there's some Catholic nuns who are out doing it in my experience, but not a lot of the rest of us. And I'm particularly interested in who's leading that and how we can engage in that more. It feels so important right now when huge corporations have so much money and so much power.
Yes.
And
I appreciate you saying that. And
than anything.
I think there actually are a lot of people of faith, a lot of denominations, and a lot of faith organizations that actually have divested and are leading on this. Again, we are not being loud enough and visible enough, because then others go, oh, I never thought of that. I never thought about not using Bank of America. I never thought about pulling out my personal and investments or credit cards. So I think it's just one of telling the story over and over and over again. Green Faith is leading on that. Third Act, if you all are familiar with Third Act Faith, Third Act is leading on that. Dayenu, which is a Jewish climate organization, is leading on that. Thank you for bringing that up. But again, like, we're doing such great stuff. We just have to. And that's what One Home, One Future is really trying to do. It's really trying to shine the spotlight. Like, Carol can't do it all, and Jerry can't do it all. And so what One Home, One Future is trying to do is like, look what Jerry's doing and follow him for this. And look at what Diane's doing and follow them for this. And if you want to know about IRA money, direct pay for your church to get solar, here's what you need to know. So it's kind of this like catch-all of like, I can't do it all, but there are people doing it, and I happen to generally know who they are, if that makes sense. So just trying to say, yay, do that. Thank you.
Carol?
Yes.
I really appreciated your whole presentation, and I'm absolutely on board about climate change. But I guess I'm finding myself, frankly, equally horrified by the crisis of animal extinction that's going on our planet. And I'm not hearing anything really about that in what you were going through. And I just kind of wondered about, is there another group that is more focused in that direction, or how are you playing with that?
Well, it's really important that, for all of us to be talking about, like right now, Season of Creation, and I hope that all of your churches are involved in Season of Creation. But it is really important that we're all lifting up in prayer and in education those issues, but it's all connected. As we work on climate change, then we're also helping. I mean, how many of the species are dying? It's overwhelming, but it's because of climate change.
Well, it's not all because of climate change.
Not all. You're right.
I mean, climate change is exacerbating it hugely. But I mean, since the 1970s, and I realize climate's been changing since then, but I mean, we've lost over 60% of these animals. And I mean, whether it's population or whether it is human greed that is causing it fundamentally.
Absolutely. And that is why the faith community needs to be leading on this, because we get the climate scientist Gus Beth has said, climate scientists cannot solve this, nor should they, because it's not a problem of climate science. It's a problem of greed. And so we have to change. We have to be part of the leadership so that it can become a moral and ethical issue, which it is. But
yeah, I appreciate your perspective on that.
I agree with you. And I became a vegetarian a long time ago when I learned of the deforestation in order to grow food for primarily cows, but for factory farmed animals. So we were taking away habitat for beautiful species and biodiversity in order to eat meat, basically, right? And so that was my first calling of like, I can't participate in this.
Anyway.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your point of view on that.
I want to follow on both of the last two questions. First of all, I support National Wildlife Federation and the Audubon Society because they are talking about species extinction and they are doing things about it.
Absolutely.
Secondly, the investment issue. Most of us are benefiting from some kind of a pension. Okay, I'm a retired Episcopal priest. We have a pension fund. We can raise with our pensions the issue of how are you investing.
Yes, you can.
My wife has an IRA, and we have moved it from a traditional kind of mutual fund to one of the mutual funds that really works on climate change and climate justice.
Yes.
And many of us have access to those pension funds and those funds that we put away, and we can influence how they're invested.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. And I applaud your movement. I've done the same with mine. And it's so much easier now. It used to be like really hard. I am not a financial person, and I was going in and doing the whole Morning Star and looking at ratings and trying to figure it out. And it was really hard. It's so much easier now. So I appreciate you saying that. I do want to remind all of us who are on this screen, you all are deep into it, and that is amazing, and continue to lead in those deep ways. And also try to be broad and welcoming and inclusive to others in order. We've got to have all people of faith addressing this in the same way that we address hunger. That Christ calls us to care for the least of these among us. What does that mean? Who are the least of these among us, and how do we do that? So I just really encourage you all to continue and lead in the ways that you're leading, and also be inclusive in inviting others in wherever they are. Not in a like, you should be, but in a like, oh my gosh, have you thought about, what can we do? How can we lead? What does this look like to our faith? It's so important. And I don't know, Jeanette, if you got to drop the links in the chat, or if I need to, you did. Okay, thank you.
I did 3 times.
And the other thing I want to say to you all is that EcoAmerica each year sponsors something called the American Climate Leadership Awards. This gives recognition and, more importantly, cash to those who are doing incredible work in the fields having to do with climate. And I really encourage either you all, or if you know of folks who are doing this work, they just announced, did I put that in the one that I gave you, Jeanette? Did that get put in here?
For the
American Climate Leadership Award.
yes, I think it was one of the first ones.
Okay, great. Oh, I see it here, you all. If you click on that, EcoAmerica, American Climate Leadership Awards, it just opened for 2025. And organizations can get as little as $1,000 and up to, I think it's $50,000. There's no strings attached to it. It's just like, thank you for your work and keep doing it. Here you go. So, and we now have one that is for young high schoolers. I think it's high school through age like 21 or 25. So if you know of young people who are doing good work that could use, some recognition and some money, then please check those out. I also want to invite all of your networks to join me on November 16th for the Climate Ambassador Training, which gives the climate basics and the science and the solutions and how to talk about it, but also just continues to support those who want and need that support.
Yeah, Carol, you need to get that to us for the October newsletter.
Okay.
Yes.
So any write-up that we need to do.
And I'll give that information to our canon for creation care and becoming beloved community. That would be something amazing too for her to have.
Yeah. So can I just email like?
Yep.
you all.
If you want to, yeah,
Yep.
everybody, or if you want the one reliable person, that would be Heather.
She
It would
is.
not be me. Do not do that just to me.
Heather will make sure that she is our resource champion, and
Okay,
she will make sure that everybody has that information.
that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Most days.
Most days.
I totally hear you. I'm here for you all. So if you all think, oh, I have a question, I wonder if Carol knows if blah, 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 then reach out to me. Or if you want to know more about One Home, One Future, the Climate Ambassador training, reach out to me. George he sees me all the time, so you can always reach out to George and he'll get you in touch with me. I just am so grateful for the work that you all do, and really just want to encourage you all, and for you all to know that I'm with you, and that we have really an incredible network of people who are doing great stuff. And so let us just shine our lights.
Yeah, and we are down. In fact, we're kind of at the hour.
Yes.
Jeanette, I saw you waving your hand. Does that mean you got?
No, I was talking to Lela. She was leaving.
Oh. So let's say thank you, Carol, for that. I mean, it's the
Yes.
whole world is what you just kind of presented. There's just network and connection everywhere, right? There's just so much going on. A lot of this is just find whatever community fits you.
That's right.
None of us are going to save anything, but we can just live out salvation
Yes.
in whatever way it comes to us. And so just find the folks that resonate with you and resonate with them. And that's being faithful, I think. So,
I did want to ask one question. So, Carol, you had talked about the youth and how we reach out to the youth, which is just absolutely amazing. As this thought just passed through my head as you were talking and we're talking about all of this, we don't have a creation care network for the youth that I'm aware of. How could we do something like that with Blessed Tomorrow? How could we do something? Is there something in the works? Has it been thought of before? Or
Well, what we're doing is creating the resources and the support for faith communities. And so I assume you have young people connected to your churches. I know there's Episcopal youth events that can be important, but it also, for our smaller churches that maybe don't have a lot of youth, sometimes it's just like reaching out to them and how can we partner, support. I want you to know you're not alone in this, that I care about you, that I know that this climate stuff is really hard. You know, being in conversation with and supporting them in small as well as large ways, right?
Yep.
That's the key.
and with that,
Now my dog put her head up too.
yeah,
Awesome.
well, she's right on time, right at the top of the hour. So thank you all. Blessings to you. Happy fall. Blessed dogs and all other creatures, great and small. Some of us are going to stay on this call